What are some sentences that sound like compliments at first, but turn out to be insults once you think it over? In Germany, it's not allowed to write critical stuff in the reference for an employee who is leaving, so often these letters are full of really bad compliments like, "He was very active organizing social events. He tried doing this or that. He got comfortable with the concept of flexible working hours. He was able to follow the process." As a Dutch guy running a company in Germany, this was quite the mindfuck for me. I had to have a German employee translate these for me, not from German to Dutch, but from reference German to German. I'd be like, "This guy sound good, right?" And then she read 2 paragraphs and went, "Nope, lazy fuck. Probably stole from the boss and got drunk at the company event." I have no clue how she got that from the same text. My favorite was along the lines of, "He has always expressed interest for the work at hand." Apparently that meant there was little more than a vague interest, and the work was not actually done. Some comments that sound good, but aren't, courtesy of Robert J. Thornton, author of the Lexicon of Intentionally Ambiguous Recommendations. Liar, I am pleased to say that she is a former employee of mine. Translation: I'm glad she is no longer working for us. In my opinion, you will be very fortunate to get this person to work for you. Translation: Employee is lazy. You won't find many workers like her. Translation: Her co-workers hate her. I would say that his real talent is getting wasted at his current job. Translation: He is often drunk on the job. I'm sorry we let her get away. Translation: We should have prosecuted. I can assure you that no person would be better for the job. Translation: His work made things worse than if we had left the job unfilled. The US is the same, but I guess we're more curt. The rule is you have to confirm whether their dates of employment and title at minimum, and you can't say anything that's negative or you'll be sued. But you don't have to say anything else if you don't want to. If you call for a reference and they're like they worked here from January to August 2020 and held the position of associate widget inspector and then silence, then you know. LOL. In The View from Serendip, Arthur C. Clarke listed cryptic references for bad servants in Sri Lanka. Good plan, cook. You'll need plenty of magnesia. Appears honest. We could never prove anything, but you've been warned. Needs more experience, but not at the expense of our stomachs. Leaves to better his prospects. Hopes to find a bigger sucker. Not overfond of work. Time-lapse photography might reveal signs of movement. Works well under supervision. We'll be glad to lend you our rhinoceros hide whip. Leaves at own request. He just beat us to it. Left because of disagreement with other servants. The charge was reduced to manslaughter. And, most ominous of all, the 2 little words, means well. Apostrophe. A couple of years ago I saw a girl from high school. She was never fat or anything, but during this year she got fit, and looked good. It was meant to be an honest compliment, but instead of saying "Wow you look great" I said "You look thinner." She did an awkward smile. This happened like 4 years ago. I still cringe and feel like an idiot every time I remember. I'm sorry for being an asshole. Frown. Once, I met an old school friend after a few years who had lost a lot of weight after having a baby, so I mentioned congrats on the weight loss, and her reply was thanks, I had an eating disorder. She was being serious, too, but she said in a chipper tone. I was stunned for a second and apologized, but she was okay with it. Look at you smiling so brightly. It's so nice to see someone like you be outside of the house. Seeing you makes me feel so much better about myself. If someone like you can be happy at all, then I have no excuse to be sad. Strangers have said that or something like it to me like 4 or 5 times since I got sick 10 years ago. They all thought they were saying something nice. They all smiled and walked away. I swear I can see their gait change, like they're appreciating their legs more. Edit. Oh man, thanks for the awards guys. You made my week. As someone who is disabled and chronically ill, I have experienced my share of similar sentiments. Media isn't helping the situation. Hollywood, stop churning out inspiration porn involving the ill or disabled. Lazy writers, stop using cancer or other terminal illness as a plot point for emotional talk. I'm not your personal TED Talk. My life's work isn't to inspire and motivate you to be positive about your situation. I was at a buddy's place one day when this guy named Kevin, not my friend, but a friend of my friend, was giving me grief about the fact that I was in my 40s, Kevin was in his 20s, kept calling me old, making fun of me for being old, etc. Eventually I said, getting old does suck, but with any luck it won't happen to you. Kevin replied, damn right it won't. I waited to see if the burn would filter through, but it didn't. About a minute later, Kevin's friend Dave suddenly looks at Kevin and breaks up laughing, much to Kevin's expressed confusion. That dude just burned you, bad man, and you didn't even get it. Hell, you actually agreed. Kevin denied the burn, which Dave had to explain to him. He means if you don't get old, you'll die. So he's saying hopefully you'll die. Kevin finally got it. He did not take the burn with good humor. I was told this at an interview for a job I really wanted and didn't get. I had friends that worked there and referred me. Days later one of my friends asked when I was starting as his boss had said I got the thumbs up. I told him the hours lady walked me to the lobby, shook my hand and said, at least you are pretty, good luck in the future. I was late called and offered an alternate interview. I declined as I could not bring myself to face that woman again. Ops seems to just ask for backhanded compliments. The one I heard was from my wife's grandmother to one of the larger cousins. I didn't recognize you. You look beautiful. Oh, Grandma. The cringe was palpable. Another one, from the same grandma to a new grandson-in-law, was when she asked his age during a normal conversation. He answered, and she, with dramatic, raised eyebrows, said, oh, is that all? She was 90 at the time. Brutal. Are you freaking kidding me? I told this to a former coworker regarding her haircut, but I meant it in the nicest way possible. As in, I always wanted to do that myself, just didn't have the guts because I don't know if it's gonna look good, but you were brave enough to do it and it looks amazing. That's why she made a face when I said it. I'm gonna go jump off a bridge now. I had a particularly useless individual working for me several years ago. Dude would argue about absolutely anything. I was the poor bastard stuck writing his monthly evaluations, and it was a requirement to put something in the room for improvement block, supposedly to show how they can grow. Needless to say, the guy argued every month. Finally, I just put, name, is a paragon of mediocrity in the block. He didn't argue, and we were both happy. Until about 3 days later when he checked the meaning, stormed and yelling threats, and finally got fired. Once a boy I liked said to me, well, at least you are pretty if not smart. And I took it as such a compliment. It took me a few years to see it on a screen cut to understand how dumb I was for letting that pass. And now I am in med school on my way to become a doctor, and he finished 3 years of high school, so joke's on you, dude. A somewhat famous instance since it was seen through immediately and it caused a huge falling out between two major companies. In order to curb online piracy of films on the internet, Google partnered up with them in order to curb or even prevent these results from showing up on their search engine. It was highly effective, cutting the amount of results that appeared on Google by half. But that came to a bitter end when them made it clear that they were thoroughly ungrateful. In an open statement published by them, they wrote, everyone shares a responsibility to help curb unlawful conduct online, and we are glad to see Google acknowledging its role in facilitating access to stolen content. Google saw the insult, that them was blaming them for online piracy by making it easier to perform, both through Google allowing access to downloads and torrents being uploaded onto YouTube, and killed their cooperation. Google still helps fight back against movie piracy, but it cut out them and instead worked with the publishers and production companies themselves. Don't know if it qualifies as an insult, but my ex told me I came to his attention as soon as we met, first as a very beautiful woman, and in the next sentence he said another woman in the group we met in a group setting came to his attention as well. Quite the roller coaster. First I was flattered, then kinda bummed / a bit jealous / insecure. then happy he was so honest about it, but it still seriously took away from the compliment. When I was 10, I went to this camp in the woods, and I don't know what to call it, but it was like a huge set of ladders we had to climb up. I was the smallest in the group, but I managed to climb up them with a lot of difficulty, and one person got stuck and said he couldn't do it. At that point, 2 counselors went to him, and then everyone in the group just started pointing at me. I always hold myself back from attempting to compliment friends on new hairstyles, cause have you done something different with your hair? It looks really nice. Doesn't quite convey what I'm going for, but anyway I turn it around. I can't find a way to avoid the possible interpretation of your hair looks so much better than it used to. Mine, and when I cut my hair off, I really thought you'd look like a butch lesbian, but actually you look good. Or to my cousin, your face is really starting to fill out. Or even better, to my mom, I'm glad you went with a bigger size dress, much more flattering on a round body. Working class British and that grew up on rationing. Lovely lady, but terrible at giving compliments. Luckily we know she means no malice at all. Interned one summer. It was an outdoor job. My supervisor was an old white guy, and was surprised I never had chiggers. On my last day he says, "You reckon it's that Native American blood keeping chiggers away?" It wasn't until a few years later my new boss, after being hired full-time, said yeah, that was kinda racist. He was also white. I live in a southeastern state full of tough old ladies who don't take shit from anyone. I was in a grocery parking lot yesterday, and some punk was blowing his horn at an old lady. She flipped him off and shouted, "I hope your day's as pleasant as you are." I've never heard that one, and I thought it was hilarious. I used to go to a Taco Bell in kind of sketchy part of town. The owner or manager or whoever he was always dealing with employees who mouthed off to him or other things. It always seemed that they were giving him a bad time, and he was just obviously trying to do a good job. After seeing this for like the 4th or 5th time, I said to him, "Wow, you are a saint." It really did not go over well. It took me a few seconds to realize that I had insulted his workers in front of him, and this did not make him happy. I got my food to go, starting this by saying that I am African American. I was told that I speak well, which normally is used as a compliment after giving a speech or whatever. But in this situation they asked me how my day was. Though it wasn't an insult to me directly, I realized later on it was a bit of an underhanded swipe towards other people of my race. A few years ago, whenever my mom saw me, she would insist I had lost weight. This happened every few weeks. I was tracking my weight with the scale, so I knew for a fact I hadn't lost anything, so it wasn't a situation where I actually had lost weight and didn't know about it. I'd explained to my mom that I hadn't lost weight, but then the next time I saw her she'd say the same thing. I tried to drop hints that she should quit saying that by not acknowledging it, but she didn't take the hint, so I had to have a mini intervention. I sat her down and asked if she was saying that to try to hint that I was overweight, and she denied it. I believe her, because she'd never had a problem telling me directly that she thought I weighed too much. About a year before this I'd told her to stop bringing it up. I was aware of my size and didn't need her to point it out, and her constantly talking about it was adding to the stress that drove my weight gain. I explained that when she kept saying I looked like I lost weight, that meant her everyday mental image of me was a lot fatter than reality, and also that she was dwelling on my weight more than anything else about me. I could tell I was right because she didn't take it well. She said it was okay to say that I'd lost weight because it was a positive comment. I told her it wasn't a positive comment because it wasn't true, and that she was only ever allowed to tell me I looked nice and wasn't allowed to make weight-related comments on my appearance, positive or negative. She didn't like it, but she did abide by it, and I know she understood where I was coming from. As a kid she'd been skinny and hadn't been able to gain weight, and people would comment freely on it. At that time it would have been unthinkable for her to tell anyone, especially a parent, to not comment on her weight. Of course, I've had the opposite too. I've had 2 periods in my life where I lost a noticeable amount of weight. I lost about 30 pounds right after college, and recently I lost about 40 pounds. Both times I've had problems with people being too complimentary. You're so much skinnier. OMG, you look so good. No, but really, you look so different. Your whole body is different. Even your face. You look so much more proportional. I bet you feel so good. Isn't it nice getting rid of your fat clothes? And on and on. The more you go on like this, the more you drive it home that you thought I looked awful before. If anyone's reading this and is confused, here's 2 things to remember. 1. You can always compliment a person without mentioning their weight. Even if weight loss is the specific reason you think they look nice, you don't have to, itemize it in your compliment. Just say they look nice today. 2. Weight loss can be sensitive, personal, and even painful. People do not always want to talk about it. A few years ago my husband lost 60 pounds ... because he almost died. It's scary to remember and awkward when people bring it up and ask how he did it. And we have to say he did it through uncontrollable vomiting and nausea. Just remember that even if you're curious about something, that doesn't mean you have the right to satisfy your curiosity. Schools are really good at this. As soon as I felt comfortable experimenting with my own clothing style, kind of alternative, teachers started saying, you don't need to listen to what society tells you to wear. You should feel comfortable wearing whatever you want to wear. At first I thought they were complimenting me on being different. I then realized they were continuing with the attitude, be your own individual, as long as it's the individual we want you to be. I can tell that you put a lot of thought into this, and that's admirable, and it's so refreshing to see a girl of your size let go and have some fun. The first one I told a classmate at university when he was so dead wrong about something, and the other one I got from a friend's friend. I was fairly fit, but I've always been curvy, hourglass, and on the taller side. One of my exes really wanted to check out a local restaurant based on reviews she had read. When we got there and ordered, the food was taking forever. It finally showed up and it was lackluster if not lousy. She was very disappointed. The server came by and asked how the food was. My ex didn't like confrontation though, so she paused for a second and with a big smile said it was highly anticipated. The server smiled back and said, "Great, I still think of it to this day. Brilliant." One that was genuinely meant well, or born out of surprise, was my boyfriend's complete shock when I told him I'd flown to Ireland once on my own. I'm autistic and struggle with rather extreme anxiety, particularly in crowded spaces and with traveling etc., so I get why he was surprised. Lol. It did come off a little as I didn't think you could do things like that, but I don't really mind. I didn't at the time either. Smile. Once, when I was at my BF's family for dinner, they served some grape juice, and in France, we call it le vin du pauvre, poor's wine. And, well, I said that, while looking at my BF's mom. She has some financial difficulties. I didn't mean to call her poor, I just wanted to state the second name for grape juice. I used to present new menu items to the executive chef a couple times a year. Good guy but sometimes pretentious. When I really had a winner he'd try it and say this is actually really good, then he'd add a few more notes, and I always had to reply with, "Dude, can you please drop the actually?" You can just say it's good or tasty or whatever without the implication of surprise. See you tomorrow. The context. This was a very bad week at work, nothing went right, long hours and lots of frustration. It's finally Friday, I'm tired as hell, but I'm not done, as I had a family dinner scheduled for that night. I have to go buy 2 bottles of wine, not unusual. Since there's a liquor store near my workplace, I go there, I pay and I go out. I'm texting that time on my way and get a reply to buy a bottle of vodka while I'm at the liquor store. So I go back in, buy a bottle of vodka, and the cashier tells me ... see you tomorrow, while pointing out at me with the "sure bro" look on his face. I say ... no, in a puzzled way, walk out and get back to my car. Then it hit me. I looked so tired and miserable that he low-key insulted me and thought of me as an alcoholic just getting the brown paper special of the day. Then I laughed and went to my dinner. The balls on that dude.